the Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. Dr Luz shares her holistic approach to parenting on purpose. Learn how personal healing can enhance every aspect of your life in episode 106.
So we, from 0 to 7, we just do not have the cognitive capacity to understand all that's going around us. So either things become either yes or no, or safe or unsafe. And even if the things that feel that should be safe are the things that we want to do, we're not going to do them because in our childhoods, those things were meant to be unsafe. I think I got a little twisted there, but
no, but I understand what you're saying. So we don't even know the program's running. It's on a subconscious level, but what we can see is the results that are in our lives. And we don't have that speed to action. We don't have that speed to manifestation that we could have. We hear other people having it, but it's not happening in our lives. It's like we're living in the mud of it all. And that's because of these unconscious programs that are holding us in these patterns.
Exactly.
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast, a space where stories of strength, resilience and transformation unfold. I'm your host, Sharlene Lynch. I'm honoured to be your guide on this journey of empowerment and healing. Today, we've got a very special episode tailored just for you. Whether you're driving the car or sipping a cup of tea or simply taking a moment for yourself, I want you to know that you're in a safe place. Healing Through Love is more than a podcast. It's a community, a beacon of hope, and a reminder that you are not alone. In this episode, we have a guest who will share their story that resonates with the core of our mission, a story that illuminates the power of love, resilience, and unwavering strength. It lies within each and every one of us. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let the healing begin. But before we dive into today's amazing episode, just a quick reminder that if you find value in our episodes, consider supporting us by subscribing and sharing and leaving a review. Your engagement helps us reach more hearts and spread the message of healing. I'd like to introduce our very special guest today, Dr. Luz. I'm going to ask a few more questions about that. She's in the field of education and she's been in that space for more than 20 years. As a teacher and a principal and a professor, she has coached and mentored hundreds of parents. Her unique holistic approach to coaching includes life purpose, healing from childhood trauma, positive psychology and human development. She creates a nurturing space where parents can share and explore their health and their healing. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Dr. Luz.
Hi, Sharlene. It's so good to talk to you and your community. It is a very important topic. I, for one, am somebody that is really interested in helping parents create spaces where they can not only raise their children. So what I like to say is that the purpose of parenting isn't just to raise good humans, it's to raise ourselves to our highest potential. And often what that means is facing some of what we experienced as little people. So I've also been on my own healing journey, and I shared that a little bit with you before we started. So I'm happy to talk a little bit about how my own experience of childhood trauma actually becomes my superpower and becomes what I've used to propel me in my career working with children and families.
I love that. I love that. It's important to share life experiences. And isn't it fascinating that we put ourselves into situations where we get to learn the lessons that we need to learn? And this is a perfect example. Can you please unpack that for us?
Yes. So I'm actually in the Montessori kind of space. I've been a Montessori teacher and charter school leader. And if you know anything about Montessori, you're there in Australia. There's a huge Montessori movement there. Montessori is all about mastery-based learning. And I like to say that the world and our lives are mastery-based learning systems. We are put on this planet to learn life lessons. This is different than saying everything is drawn out for us, or also saying that we brought things onto ourselves. I don't want to have that message out there. But we are put on this planet to become whole humans. And part of that is that we are asking for life lessons, and sometimes they're ones that are pretty difficult. But these life lessons that we experience through trauma can be our superpowers. So my story is that I experienced childhood trauma as a my parents, just to kind of talk about that, were immigrants from the Philippines in the late 60s. And, they were living that life. They were trying to begin a life. Both of them were professionals. So we've got a couple of things happening. We've got two professionals. So parents outside of the home in a time in the 1970s when women were just entering the workforce. So we've got that. Two parents out of the household trying to raise young people. We've also got the trauma of immigrating. And let's talk about that, because people in general would love to stay in the countries where they were born. But circumstances sometimes arise where it becomes not the place of optimal opportunity. And that's where my parents found themselves in. So just through that, I experienced, emotional neglect. My parents just weren't there. This is not to say, and that's the other thing I want to talk about when we talk about trauma. Sometimes when people don't want to talk about trauma because they feel that they had a pretty good life. And so it feels bad to talk about it because it feels like we're betraying our parents, or we're turning our backs on them, or we're going against them. The deal with trauma is that life is, we can't escape it. We are in contact with humans that cannot be inside of us. Plus, they're human. They can't be with us in the ways that we need them to. I'm a parent, and my experience had been that when my children were crying, I couldn't always pick them up. And that's not to say that you've always got to pick your children up, but we all come out of childhood with some things that we need to deal with. And what I needed to deal with was the fact that my parents were not available to me. They were undergoing a lot of stress, and those are things that I had to work through. So because of what happened for me as an infant, and as in my early 0 to 3 time, which is prior to my grandparents being able to immigrate. So my parents were alone out here, out in the U.S. And so that was a really tough time. And that's obviously, as you know, such a pivotal time for child development. So when I talk about that, what are those things? So for me, I am somebody who's keenly aware of what we need to do for young children. Had I not experienced what I experienced as a child, I wouldn't have that perspective. I'm also somebody who has a big heart for parents because I've gone through my own internal family systems work. I've gone through trauma therapy. I've done a lot of things for my own mental health so that I can understand and be compassionate for those who were part of the trauma experience that I had. Yeah.
I love it. So, basically you're saying that life happens for us rather than to us. And
Yes.
It's that opportunity to sort of see that, because if we're living below the line and we're living as a victim, it's done to us. It's done to us. My parents did. So I'm a firstborn of Irish immigrants, and I get it. But when we're able to shift how we see things and use language like this happened for me, then we can come from more an empowered space, coming from a victor space, and it just changes the narrative. And the stories are no longer done to you, they're done for me. And it really lifts us up to be in that place of empowerment. And I know survivors that are listening today, that's a tough pill to swallow. This was done for me. Yeah, whatever. Yes, and if you can shift even just 1 degree and see a different perspective, and the rawer we are to the the bleeding wound, the harder it is for us to see that. And myself and many of our listeners know that my beautiful baby boy committed suicide, and that's why I'm doing this, what I do, is so that I can shift the level of awareness. But I wasn't able to see all of that when I was in the thick of it. So know that all of these things that we're talking about, sometimes they happen after the healing. And I love this, what Dr. Luz is talking about, is that we're looking at not just our own childhood challenges, but we're looking at what are we doing as parents to create an environment that's going to help our children not have to go through those family patterns and learn that life lesson that we had to learn. I love that. I love everything that you're talking about. So can you tell us a little bit more about how people work with you, Dr. Luz?
So what I do is I create, as you said in the intro, a holistic program. So oftentimes the biggest thing for young people is to understand and feel safe. If your listeners know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's really on that baseline. Below all of the physical needs, or just above the physical needs, is the feeling of safety and belonging. And so what tends to happen with parents is they have the best of intentions of what they want to create in their family. And where they have the most difficulty is around consistency. Consistency feels like, and we know this from studies on human motivation and positive psychology, that safety for children actually means consistency. So if consistently I know and feel that I am loved and cared for, I come out of that 0 to 3 space feeling more confident in my own being. We have developmental goals, I like to call them. We have goals for each developmental phase. And if those needs aren't met during that phase, we have a difficult time moving, continuing to blossom and grow. So when I work with parents, what I look at is what is underneath the inconsistency. And often underneath that consistency or the inconsistency are beliefs. So if I grew up in a family where there was a lot of conflict, to me, maybe conflict wasn't okay. Maybe yelling wasn't okay. Maybe I say to myself, I don't want to be mean. So when I'm trying to be consistent with my children, and this happens, when they're toddlers, they have their own minds, and that's part of their developmental stage. They have to be able to discern for themselves what they want and don't want. And that's often in conflict with what we need and want in parents. So again, if I had a situation where it was unsafe to yell or scream or be angry, then when I'm feeling those things in response to my child, I might back away, even though it's important to set limits. So I really want to set limits. I want to make sure that my children are safe. I want to make sure that my children understand how they need to be as a functioning member of society. But there's this big need underneath that I don't want to be mean. That's my belief. So that underlying belief, which is running in the background, it's like when you have your computer and it's got all of these programs running in the background and it just gets really slow. If you experience that, this is like that. Those underlying beliefs keep us from doing the things we want because they're running in the background. So those are the kind of things that I want to help parents with, to know that it is okay to set limits. It is okay to say no, and to excavate what is underneath our what's keeping us from being consistent and providing the kind of structure that children need. Some of that, as we're linking it to healing, comes from our own wounding in our childhood. So from 0 to 7, we just do not have the cognitive capacity to understand all that's going around us. So either things become either yes or no, or safe or unsafe. And even if the things that feel that should be safe are the things that we want to do, we're not going to do them because in our childhoods, those things were meant to be unsafe. I think I got a little twisted there, but
No,
yeah.
but I understand what you're saying. So we don't even know the program's running. It's on a subconscious level. But what we can see is the results that are in our lives. And we don't have that speed to action. We don't have that speed to manifestation that we could have. We hear other people having it, but it's not happening in our lives. It's like we're living in the mud of it all. And that's because of these unconscious programs that are holding us in these patterns.
Exactly.
And working with Dr. Luz, what that does is it brings that level of awareness to the patterns so that you can lie all your cards on the table. You can make a conscious decision about how you want to work and how you want to move moving forward. And then you're not repeating these patterns to your children. So on every level, this is really important work, whether you're listening to us today and you're coming from a trauma base or you've got a trauma that you're still dealing with, regardless of where you are on that healing journey. If you've got little humans in your proximity, whether they're inside the 0 to 7 or outside it, there's still work that you can do here with Dr. Luz.
Yes.
Those family patterns, those subconscious family patterns that we don't even have a level of awareness to relive. And remember, they don't necessarily need to be from this life. So for those of you who are listening today and, you're on the woo side and, you believe in past lives, then it could be that this is not even a this life expression. So how you'll find that, it'll be in your subconscious.
Yeah.
So I love everything that you do. This is amazing. And now I just want to get it really firm here. Are you only working with children, with parents that have got 0 to 7, or are you working with them post that as well?
I am working with parents who have children of any age, because the determining factor is not the developmental stage of the child, it's the readiness and willingness of the parent. And that can happen if you have little ones. It can happen if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. It doesn't matter. What you have to feel is a yearning to heal yourself and to be whole. And it is never too late. I have worked with parents of middle schoolers, parents of high school students. Sometimes there's a lot going on with their young people. And when we have a stronger base in ourselves, we can role model for our young people what it means to work through problems. And it's a lot faster than telling them. Like middle schoolers, high schoolers, they don't want to be told how to do anything. But if they see you in the struggle, they see that this is something that is worthy of their attention and their effort.
I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. So if you're listening today and you're getting some value from this, please reach out to Dr. Luz, who's going to in a moment share with us her closing words. But if you're listening today and you are a practitioner or you're a survivor yourself, know that Healing Through Love are creating Pamper Days, not just locally here in South Australia, but also globally. So we have an army of women on the ground creating these beautiful Pamper Days that really hold the frequency for healing. And they're a great way to pay it forward. And they're also a great way to help hold that proximity for women to heal. And just to show that you care. And the stories that have blossomed from these experiences have been life-changing for not just the people that come and participate, but also the exhibitors themselves. So if that resonates with you, please reach out to us no matter what corner of the world you're in, because we are currently educating people on how to run these in your local proximity, and the training is free. So we'd love to have you on board. When you're listening to this podcast, please reach out, because we are looking for people that are heart-centered just like you and have a heart for change and are soul-driven to take us this journey of healing through love on a more global scale. I love that. Now, in closing, Dr. Luz, what are your words of wisdom you'd like to share with our audience?
I'm going to say what I've said to many people over the years. It is never too late to heal. It's never too late. no matter what time of life you're in, no matter what you're facing, it is so worth the effort to claim your wholeness and to do the work of healing. And I think the hardest thing is just starting that journey, because it seems like overwhelming. But you're in a community. I mean, you're listening to this podcast because you want to be in community with people who are either doing the hard work, thinking about doing the hard work, or who are a little bit on their way. So find a community, take that first little step, and claim your healing.
I love that. I love that. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time and listening to us today on Healing Through Love. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to bring you another amazing guest. Thank you very much, Dr. Luz. That's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Dr. Luz.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at hlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.